Hi, everybody. We are live. I think. Let me make sure that we're live. Yes, we're live. And I'm Credence. I am your professor this semester. I am really excited about having this live broadcast with my team leads. I have Jessica and Wadad, and I'll let them introduce themselves. And I also have Dawn Hart, who just jumped off. I think she's probably going to jump back on. She's having some internet issues, but I want to make sure that you are able to see and hear us. And so if you wouldn't mind on today's meet on our back channel, just kind of letting us know that you can hear us okay and see us, and then I'll move forward. And I see all of you wonderful folks on today's meet. Hey, Clay. Hey, Katie. Hey, Holly. Hey, Sarah. Good deal. So this is my 21st broadcast. So this is the 6th year I've taught it, and there's 4 broadcasts every time I teach it. So this is the 21st time, and it is my absolute favorite part of this course. I learn something every time. I get to interact with my team leads. We get to interact with you guys on the back channel. And it's just the best part of the course, in my opinion. It's not even a required part of the course, but I'm glad that so many of you tune in each week for it. So for anybody who can't watch it, of course, I'll put a video recording of it in the course to be viewed later. I also want to mention, so I know that this course is like drinking from a fire hose. I've been told, anyway, that it's like drinking from a fire hose in terms of all of the tools that we cover. And so some of the questions that came in on the completion form last week were, how in the world do I keep track of all of these tools? And so I just wanted to quickly tell you about a tool that my graduate students and I use. It's called Evernote. If you haven't heard of it, it's called Evernote, and I'll post a link to this for you later. But it's just a way to keep track and to categorize your notes, your tools, links, and then to share those with fellow colleagues. So it's just a nice way to keep track of everything. We'll talk about it more, I believe, in week 3 when we talk about content curation and using it as a tool. But before we dive into all of your wonderful questions from last week, I want to have my 2 team leads introduce themselves. So Jess, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. Okay, y'all can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, my name's Jessica Phillips. I just graduated with my master's in instructional design and technology. Woohoo! In May. So I took this class last summer, so everything's still fairly fresh on my mind. As Dr. Baker said, yes, it is like drinking from a fire hose. I've been there, but it gets better. I teach for a company called K-12. So I teach online high school. I am actually a science teacher for roughly 200 students all over the state of Texas. And so I get to hear different stories from all different kids from all different aspects of the world. So it's great. And I absolutely love what I do.
I bet that's why you have that awesome headset too, huh? Because you have to do a lot of video calls.
It is, and this one has a cord, but I do have one that's wireless, but it was dead, so I had to pull out the one with the cord. So normally I have one without, that I can walk around a little bit. So sitting can get tiring after a while.
Right. Well, I'm really thrilled to have you, Jessica. And Wadad, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Wadad Kennard, and I am a gifted and talented specialist at Denton ISD. I teach K through 5, have about 80 students in my program. And I graduated May, or August.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, I thought it was August.
Yes.
Well, and the cool thing about these team leads, and I hope Dawn is able to join back in, but the neat thing for me in having these team leads is that they've been in your shoes. A year ago, they were in your shoes as a participant in this course, probably on the back channel. And, you know, they've gone through the program. And so they took this course, and then they really built all of their, built on that knowledge throughout the program. And then now they're getting to put it into practice in this course. And so I ask a lot of them, and I'm sorry, I'm text them at all hours of the night, and they're so gracious to help me and to just, you know, really put a lot of effort and energy into it. And I really appreciate that about my team lead. So hopefully all of you participants that are watching are enjoying the course and enjoying your team leads as much as I do. I know week 2 is a lot. What I tell my team leads is once you get past week 2, you're golden. It's the same exact routine from here on out. You have all of it down. There's nothing new except for experimenting with new tools. And so I hope that you'll hang in there and get past this, the top of the hill, because it's all downhill after that, and in a good way. So I just wanted to give you that word of encouragement for those of you who are tuning in. So I want to dive into some of the questions that came in, and there were 74 questions that came in from week 1 from you guys. So there's a lot. And what I do is I just kind of, I take them and I categorize them, and then I put them into themes, and I email them to my team leads, and I say, okay, this is what we're going to be talking about on Tuesday night. Let's see what we can address. And so I won't be able to get to every question, but I hopefully will answer something related to your question. If possible. We're only on here for 30 minutes and it just flies by. So we'll try the best we can. I wanted to start with some of the main questions that came in with regard to, and I would call these sort of my, some of the skeptical questions. And I love these. These are great questions. So some of the questions had to do with, really a hesitancy to use technology because it's a distraction, or because you can't trust your students to do what you ask them to do. Or I'm seeing, for instance, Hannah from Knowledge Seekers asked, what's the best way to balance the use of technology in the classroom, considering it can also be a form of distraction? And that is, that is a struggle for anyone, I think, who teaches, is that whole classroom management aspect. So, hey, Dawn, how are you? Thank you for joining back in. Would you mind introducing yourself really quickly?
Hi, I'm Dawn Hart.
And you guys didn't even say what teams you're leading. Like usually I have like, yay, innovators are the best, or, like.
Team, was it?
You're so tired by this point. You're like, I don't know what team I'm leading. I'm just doing what Dr. Baker tells me to do.
I just finished a 17-mile walk a day ago, so I'm so tired overnight.
Well, thank you, Dawn. She's filling in at the last second. One of my other team leads canceled. So, Dawn, I appreciate you filling in. So what we're just kind of diving into now is that whole conversation we were having before the broadcast about classroom management pieces. And, it may not be so much about the technology as it is about setting expectations, modeling the behavior you want, and sticking to the expectations. So what would you guys say here for folks that are like, I don't know if I want to use technology because it can just turn to chaos?
I think you have to be very intentional with what you use, and you have to plan it out. I think you have to model for your students just like you do with any other station or center that you might have. You need to take it slow with them and give them an opportunity to practice and make mistakes, problem solve, and have a plan for when things fall apart. Maybe a tech guru in the classroom that they can go to, yes. And just set your expectations.
Yeah, I think, set your expectations that something probably will go wrong, right? Don't set your expectations so high that it's going to be so flawlessly smooth that you give up. That's a good point. What about, I guess, how would you model it? So the whole scaffolding piece, what does that look like? And, I think in week 2 in the module, they're going through these steps in the whole process of evaluating and learning about the tool, and then testing and all of those steps. But what does that usually look like for you guys?
Well, for me, when I taught, you go through, I have the groups as a group on the floor, and I showed them how each tool worked, whether it was on the computer or the iPad. And I had an overhead projector. And so I went through it on the projector and showed them each thing. And I did the reflection on the iPad. So they saw what was expected on each tool. Ah. And then, and so I went through the step-by-step what they were going to do. And I showed each thing the beginning of the week, and they had all week to work on it. Yeah. And
giving them time.
Right, to give them time to work on it. And then as a teacher, also change your expectation of, if you're one of these that wants a quiet classroom, to know that's not going to happen either.
Right.
You know, and it's okay as long as the conversation is about what's going on,
Yeah.
you know, the learning, because it's okay to have that talking and that chaos that is intentional, or, you know, and learned chaos.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay as long as learning is going on.
Yeah, we talked a little bit before we went live about, you know, sometimes it may seem like it's a distraction for your students to use technology, but if they're using it to create and to collaborate and to really dive deep into their learning, then that's a good thing. Even if they seem like they're scattered or loud or maybe not using it in the way you would. So I guess it's kind of giving students the leeway to be creative and to find different tools to do different things. I know that can be very far out of the comfort zone, but these are all good tips. And,
we're not quiet when we're creative.
Say that again, Dawn.
I said we're not quiet when we're creative.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. I'm just going to check in really quick on the back channel, and I see you guys are already having some awesome discussion here about Seesaw. I think that was the tool, guys, we were talking about that Allie Van Dyne recommended for elementary age students. So we might talk about that here in a minute. But yeah, it's JC says she loves the term learn chaos. I like that too. So yeah, setting those expectations, maybe even doing a mock lesson where it's not even about the content. It's about use this tool to do this, so that they're getting practice in a low stakes environment, and you're getting to see where the bugs are. You know, take the time to do that and it'll pay off after. I think all of those are really, really good tips. So thank you for chiming in on that. So I want to move on to some of the questions about evaluating age and subject appropriateness of tools. And I'm always surprised every year at folks who kind of say, you know, I teach art and I don't see how I could use technology in this subject. And I'm always amazed at the beginning when they say that. And then at the end when they're like, oh my gosh, I could do this, this, and this, and this, and this. So part of drinking from this fire hose is really kind of having your eyes open to all of the different possibilities, and they're endless by subject area and grade area. So I wanted to kind of have a little conversation about that. This might kind of also go along with some of the limited access questions. There were quite a few. Jennifer, hey Jennifer, if you're watching, Jennifer Maxwell, the Maxwells are teaching Glen Rose. But you know, when your school has limited access to technology, say you only have a computer or projector in your room, or you have nothing in your room and you have to go down to a computer lab, you know, so how can you get excited about using technology for your grade level and your subject area, and given the barrier of not having access to the technology? What are some ideas you guys have there?
One of the things I've done with my students is I've let them teach the class. So I let them record themselves using an iPad or even my phone. And if they've mastered a technique or a method, they get to teach the class how to do it by doing a video tutorial.
Love that.
Then we upload it to a private YouTube channel, and we, you know, share it with their parents. And then we can also view it as a class on the one computer that we have, you know?
Yeah. That's putting them in control of their own learning and empowering them to teach others. I love that idea. So
I do that.
So that's limited. Like when you have limited technology, you still can use it to have them create to show others. I love that.
I do something like that too. When I was in brick and mortar, I would actually have my students create a lesson for the younger students so they can introduce technology to the younger students.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of bringing them both in together. So they're working on something that's technology based, but they get to also experience the presentation part of it that teachers get to experience for the older grades.
Love it. Yeah, you could even use Google Hangouts like we are to have the older kids present to the younger classroom. I love that. And then all you need is a projector, right? I mean, a computer and projector. That's a great idea. What about, so we talked about, so Google Hangouts is the tool that they're experimenting with this week. And so I wanted to kind of brainstorm some ways that you could use this for younger grades. So this platform, Google Hangouts, or platforms like Zoom or the other synchronous video call tools. What are some other uses? And I know we brainstormed a little bit before we went live, but anything you guys want to share?
I think one of the neat ways you can use Google Hangouts is to post a question like you did, and then have the kids respond with their answers. And then they can reply to one another if they agree or disagree or add to.
This is something you could even do with homework assignments. So students can maybe think outside the box and do something or collaborate from home. Maybe they don't necessarily have technology at school, so they can introduce using technology at home. So that's helping the not having so many devices or not having technology at your fingertips at school. But most of them do. I know the older kids, most of them do have a cell phone or something that they can use at home to work on collaboration also.
Good point. Yeah, I think so one of the things I wanted to mention at the younger grade level, and Jess, I think you brought this up with Hangouts, is you can do a Hangout with a planetarium and have a virtual tour, a virtual field trip. You can connect your classroom, your elementary classroom, to an elementary classroom in the UK. You can, and we'll talk about this more as we kind of get into the course about building your personal learning network, but making those connections with other educators across the world help bring the world into your classroom. And it's via tools like Hangouts that let you do that. So one of the other things, and don't let me forget, and was it you, Jess, or what ad that said, have them have an online pen pal via Hangouts?
That was me. So that way they could, especially the younger grades. I know we talked about how sometimes people are scared to introduce stuff like this to younger grades, elementary school level. And so this is something they could add that, just a pen pal, somebody that they can talk to. Or you can even do Google Docs for that, and they could type to each other and work on their complete sentences and writing skills, and they can talk to somebody in another state that you may happen to know, somebody that teaches in another state that has kids that are roughly the same age. So online collaboration for that.
I think Google Hangouts is also great for introverted kids and ESL students and students that are just learning the language, because it gives them more confidence. They don't have to speak. They can just write something.
Right. That's a good point. Let me show, for those same folks that submitted questions about how can this be applied at the younger grades, I want to share a resource that one of my team leads shared last year. I'm going to screen share really quick. So can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is, it's called GAFE, G-A-F-E for littles. And this is a lady in California who blogs about how she uses mainly Google tools, but other tools as well in her kindergarten classroom. And so she has lesson plans and resources all the way from starting to show them how to type in a password using colored tabs on the keyboard, to having them, like what Ad said, create entire lessons to show other classrooms. And so she's just got a lot of neat stuff on her blog. And so I'll share this. I have a compiled, I call it the resource cheat sheet. So while all of these tools are mentioned on these live broadcasts, and I see stuff come in on Twitter, I add it to the resource cheat sheet. And then in week 4 or so, I'll share that with everybody, and you'll be able to go in and access all of these links. And I categorize them by topic, and it's organized for you. So just know I'll put this link on there, but I wanted to be sure and share this as a resource for you folks at the elementary level. Okay, so let me get back to some of the questions. Let me check in on the back channel too. I don't want to go too long without checking in. So, oh wow, you guys have got a whole back channel conversation going. So they are talking about Flipgrid and Plickers and Nearpod, and some hate it and some love it. And then, you know, some are talking about access at home being the issue. You know, Susan mentioned that they have the reverse problem where they have access at school, but not at home. And, you know, there's some grants out there for, especially if your school has low income students, where you can write grants to send Ethernet cards home, iPads home, so that they have internet and devices. There's quite a few grants out there for that sort of thing. So definitely, I think one of the things I hope I didn't forget. Did I forget to mention the very first step if you don't have a whole lot of technology? I think I did forget to mention it. The very first step, if you don't have a lot of technology in your school or at your students' homes, is to advocate for it. You be the advocate in your school. You know, you go and petition your school board or your principal or your superintendent, or you go to Donors Choose and set up an account to just bring in those resources. So once you start doing things that are innovative, it's easier to advocate for those things because you're doing good things with it. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that too.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so I made an Amazon wish list this past year for some technology items, and I actually got several things off of my wish
cool.
list. And they sent it right to my classroom, so don't be afraid to ask your parents.
Yeah, that is a really good point. I know I'm a parent of a kindergartner, and whatever Miss Voss asked for Brooks, I was gonna send it. So that is a really good point. Okay. I'm glad Katie H says she's glad to read about the blog for littles, and I'll post that, Katie, for you. Susan says her IT person is working on a grant for their school. So these are all good things. So the other thing I wanted to mention with regard to the access issue is in week 5, I believe, in week 5, I have a list of things. If you only have one iPad, here's, 10 things you could do with technology. If you only have a computer and a projector, here's some things you could do. So if that helps get you started, hopefully in week 5, that'll be useful for you. All right, so let's move on to some of the course development and design questions that came in. So I always love, some of the questions are like, how in the world does this course even operate? And I'll say there's about 160 students in this class, and it operates because of my team leads and because of Google Drive. So everything is organized behind the scenes in Google Drive. And then we have a behind the scenes community where we have just ongoing conversations. And then of course, text messaging. It is a lot of communication, but the goal of this course really is to have it still feel like you're part of this personal learning community that is the Tarleton OOC. And then also that you have some identity with the team, and then that you have some identity even on the smaller group level with your key point documents that you're starting this week. So I don't know if that answers how this course runs. It's the 6th year I've taught it. So it runs, I think, because it's the 6th year I've taught it, and I'm learning things as I go. But I think every year I'm amazed at the team leads and what they add, the richness they add to this class. And I learn something new every time, and then I go back and add it for the next year. So I think that's what helps the course run. Some of the other questions that came in with regard to design, and Donna, if you'll chime in here, well, really all of you guys, you've all had designing online learning environments as a course, but they want to know, and this is Kristen and from Innovators and Amanda from Connectors, what are some of the pitfalls of designing an online courses, mistakes that you've made that you want to learn from? And we kind of brainstormed a little bit before the broadcast. I make mistakes every day. So this was a hard one for me because I'm constantly making mistakes and I go back and fix it. Even before this broadcast went live, I had made a mistake with the embed code and had to scramble to get it fixed. So Dawn, what were some of the things you shared that you kind of, and just you too, since you teach online and design online, some of the pitfalls of designing online courses?
The first thing I would like to point out is that when designing courses, you need to make sure you check and see what it looks like from the student's perspective. So not just the students, like for example, I teach special education students that have modified assignments and so on and so forth. So everybody goes into a different group. And so I have to literally go in and see, what does it look like for this group? What does it look like for this group? What does it look like for this group? Does it look the way that I want it to? Because a lot of times what we see is not what they see. Maybe we forgot to unhide something or to, release something. And so we need to make sure that we're checking every single aspect. So it's a lot of going back and forth. This is where
it's the
dual
step
monitors are amazing.
Yeah. It's the step you're so tempted to skip because it takes a while to log in as each, for me, it's 6 demo students to check. So it's the most tempting to skip, and it's the most disastrous if you do skip it. So I would say that's a really good point, is viewing it through the student lens and not skipping that step, because that's so critical. That's a good one. Dawn, do you have anything? You're new in your role of instructional designer, but anything you're kind of like learning as you
That's probably one of the biggest, is that, and making sure that when we put things in, that we make sure that, like especially the grade center, that making sure that everything totals up correctly in the grade center.
Yeah. Yes.
Once you've got it in there, sometimes we're not checking the put the assignments in, or making sure that they're all totaling 100, or and so that's a big one.
It's just that double checking. It's so easy to just hit submit, publish, and just go on with your day. And it's that double checking. I agree. That's probably one of the most time consuming, but most critical steps. So great questions, Kristen and Amanda.
I do want to point out, as Dr. Baker and everybody else that's, I know, a team lead that's designed a course would know, you're not going to get it right the first time. It's going to take you a few times, so don't get frustrated. If you're in a class or you're in a position where you can ask for help, that's always something that you can use, because sometimes we're thrown to the wolves, we feel like, but there's always somebody that's been in your shoes that knows how you feel. So reach out for help, because you're not going to get it right the first time, I promise.
That is really good advice. Very good. Okay, so let's move on. And of course, we're already almost out of time. Every single time this happens, but I want to cover very quickly some LMS questions. So tons of questions from Tina and Tara from Collaborators, and Yvonne and Melissa from Team Ignite, and Ginger from Knowledge Seekers, and Meg, hey Meg, from Innovators, and Morgan from Creators. So they want to know, all right, so smackdown between Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle, Google, D2L, and Modo, all these LMSs. And so we really literally have 3 minutes to go through what we could talk about for hours. But do you want to kind of speak to, since we were kind of talking about the younger grades with elementary teachers, let's start with Google Classroom. What are some benefits of that LMS?
My district is a Chromebook district, so I have Google in my classroom, and that's what I have available. So we use Google Classroom, and it's taken me a really long time to learn all its features, and I'm still learning, but it's worked really well because I can embed links, I can upload PowerPoints or videos, or students can respond to me. I can even put in a blank paper, and the kids can just put their answers into that document, and they can collaborate with one another also.
Yeah, it's a great tool. One of the conversations we were having just before we went live is, and Tarleton is a great example of this. Tarleton's about to transition from Blackboard to Canvas. That bomb was just dropped a few weeks ago, and I'm actually pretty happy about it. Canvas is a great tool. To me, the way I build my courses is the learning management system is organized. It organizes everything, but everything is pointed outside the LMS. So no matter where you move me, if you move me to Canvas, okay, then I'll just move my text, and then I'll point straight back to my YouTube videos, my soft chalk lessons, which are housed outside of Blackboard. All of that lives external to the LMS. The LMS is just the way I organize it. And so I'm ready for the challenge. I'm scared about transitioning. It's going to take a whole year apparently to transition to Canvas. But I think that's one important thing to point out is really you're oftentimes at the mercy of what your district selects for you. So really kind of keep those design considerations in mind about housing your resources outside and pointing to them, and just be ready for it if things change. Dawn, I think you guys are experiencing this course from the vantage point of Blackboard, so you probably are getting a feel for that. And Dawn, you said the university you work at uses Blackboard as well.
We're using Blackboard and considering going to Canvas. So
a lot of schools are, right?
We're trying to, yeah, they're losing. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, we use Blackboard right now.
Yeah.
We're on the cloud, the SOS or whatever.
And then Jess, you guys use D2L?
Yes, we use D2L currently, and then I've used Blackboard before also. So those are the only two that I've personally built courses with. D2L is a little bit easier for me to work, but it's especially easier for my students. So we really like that.
Yeah, so those are all considerations. If you have any influence over what tool your school is going to use, the student vantage point is just as important as the designer and the instructor vantage point, I would say. And I'm seeing on the back channel a ton of you guys use Canvas, it looks like. Sarah says D2L is very encompassing. Maybe it has the functionality where you don't need soft chalk and those types of things. So that's cool. Yeah. So it looks like Canvas is a pretty popular LMS. And so that's going to be interesting for me and lots of lessons learned, I'm sure, over the next year. But guys, we're already at the end of our time. I always feel like I have to cut the conversation short, but I don't want to take up too much of your evening. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I'll put this recording of this in the in an archive folder for you. And we will see you next week. Hang in there in week 2. You can do it. See you later.